That is what they're trying to do. And in this new world order, yeah, absolutely. When they're looking at Greenland and say, I like it, I want to take it for mine, that is a very colonizing attitude.
I have never ever said we're going to go to Greenland and, quote, colonize it or steal it.
You're not a member of government, so you're irrelevant at that point. I'm talking about the president of the United States doing that.
You got fired from your job.
You can agitate.
Scott, if you want to engage in personal insults,
I don't, but you do.
What you lack in a legitimate point, you make up for in personal input.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Hope all's good wherever you are. Aren't you all glad you're not married to that lady? Life could always be worse. We have our boys, Scott Jennings, Michael Singleton, cooking again on CNN. It's that time of day. Let's watch them take down these Democrats.
The trade, honestly, the trade is asymmetrical.
And who voted for Donald Trump?
Precisely. Trade is asymmetrical with China. We imported over 439 billion products from China. We exported over 140 billion from China. Their own foreign ministry has said, we will not flinch. We will not genuflect to a bullying government. I respectfully disagree.
You, though, Tiffany, that we rely so much on an adversary to make most of our goods?
Listen, whether it bothers me or not is irrelevant. I'm dealing with reality.
Important, though.
It is important, but this is what it is.
Why does it have to be the reality that we are dependent on so many things to come out of our biggest adversary in the world? They are the enemy, and we should not be dependent on them.
But no, they are not our enemy. They're our biggest trading partner. And if we
they've got rare earth minerals and you don't.
They're the enemy.
Right. But listen, like it or not, Michael, they are our biggest trading partner. And if we were to manufacture iPhones here, iPhones would cost $3,500. The American people are not going to tolerate that. We have one of the highest standards of working conditions here. I don't think that we can say, forget you, China. They literally.
So you're okay. Hold on, Sir Michael. So you're okay if we continue to put our own economic and national security future in the hands of our biggest enemy, because effectively they use slave labor to build stuff, and that makes it better for us? That is terrible.
I am 100% not okay with that, but I'm dealing in the reality of what is.
Do you want to change it?
But we need to.
I absolutely want to change it. I don't know that changing it means isolating us on the global stage.
So what happens? So Tiffany, if I could ask, what happens if we ever have a military conflict with China, and they say, you know what, we're going to put an embargo on anything shipping to the United States. We're going to stop everything. What happens then?
One of the things that's happened is that the United States has lost, like, what, is it $1 trillion or $11 trillion since this all began? Maybe regained a little bit of it, but has lost all of that, and not a single trade deal has been struck.
And the reason why they haven't been struck is because lowering the headline tariff number is the easy bit. The 90 days is now going to be dealing really with the non-tariff barriers, the rules on procurement, who can own what this and that and the other. It's difficult stuff. It's very, very difficult. But I have a question, and I'd like to address it to my dear and good friend, Mr. Jennings. This is it. Today, the president gave a 90-day moratorium. Why did he not last week, when he did his show and tell with his list, say then, this is going to be the tariffs in 90 days. Now send your best people to Washington to negotiate with me over the next 90 days. Instead, he took us over the cliff and has now pulled us back up again, and he's left chaos in his way.
It is a great question,
I think the answer that you would get from the administration is doing it this way gave him maximum leverage. It showed people that he was serious, and it showed people that this isn't for show, that if you don't deal with us, we are willing to act here. But I think the answer is leverage, simply leverage. And now he's going to be able to deal with all these other countries and continue to isolate the bad actor, which is China.
I don't think he's shown people that he's serious. I think he's shown people that he's crazy. He's mercurial. Honestly, if it was Kamala Harris behaving this way, they'd call her hormonal and hysterical, right? Look.
Well, you'd have to get elected to be.
But, well, yes, and if she had been elected, and if Hillary Clinton had been elected, if any woman had been elected and been acting this way, they'd say it was menopause.
She would have never stood up to China, so I think this is a mood issue, right?
No, it's not a mood issue, because his craziness and the way that he acts, and this is not in a vacuum, because it's not just the tariffs. It's the first thing he did was attack Panama, Greenland, Denmark, Canada, allies, abandon Ukraine, cozy up to Russia. It's been one thing to after another. But this is also very, very similar to what Doge has been doing, where they go in with a sledgehammer when everybody talks about needing a scalpel. With these tariffs, again, went in with a sledgehammer, caused fear, destruction, distrust when it could have been done with a scalpel in a strategic way. That's just not the way he operates.
Even the administration was not on the same page. I mean, it was the narrative around these tariffs has changed so many times. First, it was, oh, it's punitive because of Mexico and Canada and fentanyl, which, by the way, a majority of the fentanyl crossing the border is from American citizens. Then it was, you know, we're going to level the playing field, and this is how we're going to pay for tax cuts. It does not show that he was serious. It shows that he was grossly unserious. And so, yet again, on the heels of a signal group chat and now tariffs, we look like a national embarrassment.
Well, let me just play one thing, Gina. Let me play one thing to Tiffany's point. I mean, Donald Trump and Scott Bessent have not been on the same page about this. Bessent has been trying to paint this as a pretty rosy picture, saying, you know, the bond markets had nothing to do with it, and the way that the market responded had nothing to do with it. Trump said the opposite. Listen to this.
Watching it, but if you look at it now, it's beautiful. The bond market right now is beautiful. But yeah, I saw last night where people were getting a little queasy.
How much of this decision was driven by the bond market cratering overnight? What is happening with the bonds? Is China selling their bonds?
I have nothing that says that, and we actually had quite a good 10-year auction today.
It's kind of a casualty of being in Trump's cabinet that he will contradict you just a few minutes after you say something. But it had everything to do with the bond market. According to all available reporting, they went to the president and said, Mr. President, all the lights are flashing red right now. We have to change course. And he did. Perhaps
well, he did, and I think it's important for the president to adhere to that advice of his advisors. These are complicated matters. The market, for the most part, likes stability and continuity. We all understand that. We talked about this the other day. With that said, I think the end result needs to be, can we level set with many of our trading partners and decrease the trade deficits that ultimately exist? If we can do that, I think that's a win. As it pertains to corporate America, I think once we pass corporate tax cuts or renew the Trump tax cuts, I think we'll see a significant amount of that wealth return in the next couple of weeks or 2-3 months. I think corporate America will be perfectly fine, and then we'll move on. The focus does need to be on China. I mean, Scott's right. They steal our IP and sell it back to us. I don't know any country in the world who would give their ideas away for free and then buy the ideas back. We have to figure out a way to protect American businesses and entrepreneurs, and we haven't figured that out in the past couple of years now. So I think there's some benefit to the American people and businesses by focusing the attention on China.
I think everybody agrees with that. The problem is China's not playing ball. They're just ratcheting up the escalation.
But they're going to have to, though, Abby. We are their number one trading partner. There's their number one trading partner.
No. There's no have to in this.
Right.
Because let's start looking at trade flows. I wish I had a map or a diagram. You're going to start seeing South-South trade. You're going to see trade avoiding the United States.
Yeah,
let's remember.
Richard, can I just have you explain very briefly what South-South trade means for people who are, you said it a few times.
Well, it's basically anything, it doesn't go through the Northern Hemisphere. It's southern hemispheric countries trading with each other, avoiding Northern Hemispheric, and that would include the EU with its regulations, and the United States. We're seeing huge amounts of Africa to Central and Latin America, Australasia, Asian, ASEAN trade. Can I just also have a reality check here? The sword of Damocles, if you will, has been lifted again and is now hanging over on the big stuff. But we still have steel and aluminium, or aluminum, as you insist on saying, steel and aluminium tariffs.
We're in America, Richard Crest.
We still have auto tariffs, 25%. We've still got 125% on China. And we have tripled, or he has tripled, the average tariff overall to 10%, which is livable. I'll give you that, Scott. It's livable, 10%. But it's still a tripling of where it was just a couple of weeks ago.
But Richard, how do you account for the fact that China has seen a significant decrease in their economic growth throughout fiscal year 2024 compared to 2023, and how that has to factor into the considerations of Xi Jinping moving forward and trying to bridge some type of a trade deal with the United States?
If Xi Jinping was standing for Beijing North in an election, it would, but it doesn't.
Okay. Different kind of system. Effectively no politics, Cher Michael. I think this is an important point. China, Xi Jinping does not have to deal with politics in the way that Donald Trump and the Republican Party have to deal with it. That is a fundamental difference in our systems. So they can withstand a lot of pain.
Look, Richard Crest has been doing economics for a long time. He's probably forgotten more about economics than I will ever know. As somebody who owns this business, who's been into real estate and economics myself, I got to say he's wrong here. And sure, Michael Singleton is right. We are the biggest trade partner to China. And it's not even close. Trump was using these tariffs, and let's be honest here, China, and thanks a lot, Bill Clinton, should have never been into the World Trade Organization. Should have never been let in. Like sure Michael was saying, they steal our IP and they sell it back to us. So we can't compete with them. Kevin O'Leary talks about this. I posted a clip of him today talking about this stuff. But Trump was using the tariffs to address chronic U.S. trade deficit. America, in the global economy, we are the buyer. The world needs our markets way more than we need China's product in this case. Way more. We hold all the leverage, not in spite of our trade deficit, but because of it. Tariffs are being used here as a tool to flip the imbalance, forcing trading partners to come to the table. And let's be honest here, if it's not Donald Trump doing that, nobody is coming to the table. Kamala Harris, if she would have won, the ladies like, oh, what if Kamala would have won? BS. She's not doing anything in this case. She's another Obama or another Biden. Let's just bend the knee to China. Our trade partners need to access our markets. China needs our market, again, I say this, way more than we need them. We import a tremendous amount of goods from China. We are by far, and it's not even close, their biggest partner in order for them to sell their products. But even though the number is very big of what we send to China, the dollar amount is very small. When you apply the tariffs on Chinese goods, it's like 100 to 1 for costs associated. Scott Besson talked about this last week on almost every news show in the country, but people just seem to not want to listen. They have the most imbalanced economy in history, China does, of the modern economies. They are the surplus here. Their exports to the U.S. are 5 times what our exports are to China. Again, dollar amount. Let's get back to it.
Land. You cannot just go and say, I like it, it's mine now. It doesn't work that way. Well, that is what they're trying to do. And in this new world order, yeah, absolutely. When they're looking at Greenland and say, I like it, I want to take it for mine, that is a very colonized attitude.
I have never ever said we're going to go to Greenland and, quote, colonize it or steal it.
You're not a member of government, so you're irrelevant at that point. I'm talking about the president of the United States doing that.
You got fired from your job.
You can agitate.
If you want to engage in personal insults,
I don't, but you do.
What you lack in a legitimate point, you make up for in personal insults.
I don't. You
personal
do.
Insults. The point I am making is in this new world order, we are looking at countries, whether or not they're an adversary or ally, it is being determined on what kind of deal we can get. And we cannot govern, we cannot legislate that way. We are increasingly isolated on the world stage.
No, we're not.
So if you want to engage in personal insults,
we're not
if I were
isolated.
you, I would reserve that for your party who is increasingly isolated. This our position
outside of the United States.
How concerned are you about the chain of events here? Donald Trump, Truth Socialing at 9:37 a.m. This is a great time to buy DJT, which is the ticker for his company. And then later in the afternoon, lifting the pause and everything skyrockets. There was a lot of other activity going on in the markets that people are concerned about. What do you think?
We know from what we've heard today that there was a meeting this morning between Bessent, Lutnick and the president. The president admitted this in the Oval Office when he said they talked about it. We wrote the statement. It was a beautiful thing. It came from the heart. And then you get this tweet or whatever you want to call it on social to tell people this is a good time to buy, whether it's DJT as a ticker or DJT as in his initials, which he doesn't use very often, by the way, in his posts. If to say this is a good time to buy and then take a decision that you pretty much know is going to rally the market, I'm not going to finish that sentence.
I mean, what is it? Tinkering with the markets?
I hope not.
Allowing for insider, because anybody that was privy to that conversation or knew what was happening could have taken that information and done something with it.
Anybody who read that tweet, that social and had an inkling of what he might do or anything like that, it's just, you don't do it. It's as simple as that. You don't tell people now is a good time to buy if you are the person who is about to take a decision that is going to make the market rally.
Why is he doing things like this when most presidents know that they have the power to move markets? They tread carefully. Trump is not doing that.
Yeah, I mean, he is radically transparent. Everything that is on his mind, he tends to either put out in front of the press in the Oval Office or out on his social media. I don't think today's commentary is any different than he operates on any other day. And I think it's been true for time immemorial that when a president speaks, however they speak, markets do move. And it's not the first time it's ever happened.
Do you think it's appropriate for the President of the United States, knowing he's about to take a decision that is going to buoy the market, to actually put out a social posting saying, now is a good time to buy? And anybody who might know his thinking on these issues might say, hey, he's going to do so. I don't know. I'm just saying.
Yeah, Tiffany?
But because he's doing something unethical and he's doing it before the American people, that doesn't make it right. He doesn't get to wear that as a badge of honor. I also get nervous, respectfully, when we talk about the economy in terms of the market, because I think about the average person at home who is going to the grocery store, figuring out how to pay their mortgage every day. And the economy for them is not whether or not to buy a stock that day. It is how much can I afford to spend at the grocery store. And what this has done is not that these tariffs are going to eventually hit people. They already have. Like, prices have already taken a toll on a lot of people. I did a show today and we were talking about people were paying $60 and $70 more for items and products before these tariffs have come to be. That is what the economy is. Most voters are not carrying stock prices into the voting booth. And so for Donald Trump, the president of the United States, if any other elected official had done this on the other side of the Republican aisle, Scott, I can't imagine that you would be sitting here defending that. Sure, Michael, I can't imagine you would be defending that if a Democratic president was tweeting about now is a great time to participate in the stock market.
I haven't defended what Richard was just talking about, but
so you do think it's inappropriate.
But I do want to go back to the idea of possibly going into a recession, Richard, and I wanted to get your thoughts on this. I mean, we saw several recessionary factors in the previous administration, Fed hikes, slower growth, et cetera, and we were able to avoid it then. We haven't really seen economic activity constrict thus far. We'll have to see what consumer confidence and spending ultimately is as we go through Q2 of this year. But wouldn't you say it's at least a little premature to be saying we're getting ready to face a recession? And if not, I want to know why, because I don't see the factors there.
I know we've got to rush, but because the dislocation is too great, the chaos is too much, and eventually it overwhelms the system. It's back to my cake rising.
I think
we got to go.
Well, I think he watched Diamond on TV, but I also think he was hearing from private advisors. I think he was hearing from members of Congress, who, by the way, he's negotiating with over, his reconciliation package right now. I think a lot of advice was coming in that led into the day's activities. And, if renegotiating with our allies over a 90-day period is the net result of this, isn't that a good thing?
His own administration is not even on the same page.
I want to get back to one little thing that Richard Crest said about rare earth. China is the producer of 90% of all the rare earth that is in the world. But it's not because they're the only ones who have it. It's because they're the only ones mining it. That's why the deal with Ukraine would have been so good for America. This problem is very fixable for us. We need to mine our own rare earth. China holds some cards. We're dependent on them for some critical goods to be able to have the machinery for our military, for our Tomahawk missiles, for our fighter jet, for our tanks. Those things need parts, and those parts come, in essence, most of them from China. It's not that they make our tanks, but to make the tanks, we need all these little things that we get from them. We get chips from Hong Kong, or Taiwan, not Hong Kong. The rise of China has been financed by our trade policies. It turns out that the elites running the country before Trump got in, they were really, really good at rationalizing, making a lot of money for themselves by doing this, by getting into bed with China, and Trump is not having it. You know why? This is another reason why these Democrats can't seem to get their heads around it, and he is the president for the little guy, for the American working class. That's why the stock markets are all over the place right now. Look, 10% of the population owns 88% of the equities. The other 40%, under them, they have 12% of the stock market. But the bottom 50% of America are in debt, credit card debt, house debt. They got bills. They can't afford to buy a home a lot of times. They can't afford their rent because they're not making enough. It's a horrible situation. And the tariffs, long term, will be a great thing for America. I know they're paused now. But I think all of this is to bring China to the table and to get most of the tariffs to be zero both ways, to just have unfettered free trade between the countries. That's what Trump wants. Catch you all in the next video. Peace out, everybody.